Hi, it's me JD and welcome back to my channel. Today we will be doing Mother's Day cards. I have a couple of card ideas for that special mother figure in your life, or perhaps that awesome mom friend that needs a little encouragement around Mother's Day. So if you're a mom, or you love your mom, or you support all moms, be sure to hit the subscribe button and let's jump into this card using felt flowers. Felt is a fantastic fabric to use on your cards. It adds great texture and dimension, and it really adds to the homemade feel to your cards. I started by die cutting some flowers out of this felt I had, and once I knew that I liked the design and look of it, I used a variety of colors to cut out even more flowers. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to collage them all on my card front, and I decided to use black cardstock because I wanted a more modern look to my Mother's Day card. So after adding some glue to the back of my flower, I'm going to use my tweezers to pick it up so I try to minimize the glue on my fingers, and then I'm going to attach it to my card front. I'm going to repeat the process until I get all of the flowers stuck on there, and it's okay if they hang off the edge because I'm just going to trim them off anyway, trim off the excess. Felt add such a cool texture, and the first thing you want to do when you see this card is just feel it and just touch it and feel all those flowers in there. And I realized that there's some awkward empty spaces, so what I did was I used one of my opaque markers, I think it's in silver, and I just added dots everywhere there was an empty space. And then I use a alphabet die set to cut out mom, and I used some pearl paper to add a little something extra for mom. And then I'm going to get my T-ruler out to make that as straight as possible when I line it up. This card design was meant for, the cool mom, not just a regular mom, but the cool mom. Do you know what movie that's from? Bonus points if you list it in the comments down below. All right, I'm going to add this card to a white card base to just make that mom pop a little more, and that card is done. The next card features heat embossing and coloring. So I'm going to ink up my stamp, but before I stamp it, I'm going to use my little dusty thingy, and then it basically gets all the static off your card because we're doing heat embossing. So after I use Versamark ink to stamp my image, I'm going to pour some sparkly heat embossing powder over it. And then I'm going to go back and repeat the process, but this time I'm going to stamp my bowl on some vellum. I wanted this part to be like a really translucent image, so that's why I decided to do it on vellum. I decided to use the same color of embossing powder for my bowl because, look at it. It's just so sparkly. It's so pretty. I'm going to dust away any excess before I put my embossing gun to it, my heat gun to it. And here's the trick with using glittery embossing powder. You want to heat up the back first before you bring it to the front, because otherwise, as I've found out in the past and learned by experience, that if you put it to the front first, it blows all your glitter away, and then you're left with a glittery mess, which isn't always a bad thing. But here I wanted to not do as much cleaning and dusting on my craft space. So same thing with the vellum. I heated up the back first to make that glitter embossing powder stick, and then I went to the front. Once that part cooled down, I got out one of my markers, and I'm going to color the back of the vellum bowl in this kind of cool blue shade, just to add a little bit of color to it and make it really resemble a crystal bowl. I colored my flowers off camera because I tend to do my coloring at the dining room table with my kids, and so you'll rarely see me color on camera. And next I'm just going to add some gems to it to make the sparkle even sparklier. I hand lettered that word mom on there. I'm going to pop this on some gray cardstock, and this card is perfect for a more traditional mom card. The next card we're going to do is an interactive card which features a slider pull tab. I have this die set which is great for scene building, and I'm going to build a kind of outside park scene. So I'm going to use some watercolor paper to make this part go a little faster. So I cut out some grass, if you will, and this is what I use to store my die cuts when I do my coloring. As I said, I do my coloring everywhere, outside, dining room table, in the car. And so I bring this little pile with me when I just want to do some coloring to just pass the time. And I already did some coloring of some bunnies. And I'm going to use 3 bunnies, 2 bunnies. I don't know. I'm just going to pull out some bunnies to see which one works and which one doesn't. I'm going to use 2 bunnies to represent my 2 kids. Having these pre-colored images really saves so much time. I mean, my kids are young, like they're not even school age. So I barely have time to do anything else. So I got to get my crafting time in when I can fit it in. And so when I can just pull out some images and just build my scene and they're ready to go, it means I have more time to spend with my kids or for more crafting time. Anyway, so I used my slider die to cut this slit in my grass, and I'm going to put the mama bunny on one side, and I'm going to put the 2 kid bunnies on the other side. And so I wanted this to be cohesive, and so I used the other part of my die cut, the scrap paper, and I'm just gonna put that on the back of the card, so when you slide the card or you slide the pull tab, it's all cohesive and it just looks prettier in my opinion. Next, I am going to double up on my foam tape and then attach that to the back of my grassy die cut. You're going to want to build it up so your slider mechanism actually has room to move around. So I highly suggest doubling up. Speaking of my pull tab, I'm going to cut out a piece of paper from some scrap paper that I've been using. I'm going to put that on the back of my grassy die cut so you see what it looks like. Then I'm going to cut out slivers of that doubled up foam tape to attach to my little bunnies. And so I'm going to attach one to one little bunny and one to the other little bunny. And I'm going to attach both of those bunnies to my pull tab. And the mama's going to stay put because, let's face it, the kids do all the running around anyway, right? Then I will attach some adhesive to the back of my mama bunny, and so she can stay put exactly where she is and all the kitties can come to her. And she gets to be spoiled for the day. Hint, hint. Husband, are you watching? I don't know if my husband watches my videos. I should quiz him on this part. Anyway, I'm going to pull off the back of the foam tape off of my kid bunnies and attach them to my pull tab to make sure everything works, which it does, and it slides perfectly. So I'm going to pull off the back of the foam tape off my whole grassy die cut here and attach that to my card base. And I realized that I have a lot of excess on the bottom, so I'm going to just cut that off. And I realized I don't have any directions on my card, so I'm going to handwrite the word pull on the right there so the recipient actually knows what to do with the card. Not that it's not obvious at all. Anyway, I realized that my background's looking a little plain, so I'm going to add a few clouds, and then I'm like, oh man, I need a sentiment. So I pulled out another stamp set from Lawn Fawn that just says Happy Mother's Day, nice and simple, because the star of the show is a slider mechanism. Next, we'll be doing an ink blended shaker card, and so first I'm going to start off with my Distress Oxide inks. I'm going to go in a circle starting from the middle and then blending outwards. It's going to go from light pink to my favorite shade of Distress Oxide and Distress inks, which is Pix Raspberry, and then to Seedless Preserves. And then once I got all of that blended, I'm going to cover up all of my inks and then spray with some shimmer spritz from 2 feet above and blot that with a paper towel so I get this cool water effect that Distress Oxide inks have on paper. And then once that's dry, I'm going to clean up my area and I'm going to do some stamping to create my own background paper on my frame, on my shaker frame. And so what I did was I just stamped Happy Mother's Day in the same inks I used on the background in a random pattern. And if there are weird empty spaces, I just fill that with a heart set that came with my stamp set as well. Next, I'm going to use my dusty powdery thingy. What do you call that thing? Anyway, I'm going to dust that on my acetate here, because we're going to be doing some heat embossing on acetate, and I didn't want any powder where it shouldn't be. And as I'm stamping, I realized something is wrong because my Misty's all shaky, and what do you know? There's a magnet on the back of my Misty. Cool. Anyway, that's why I always lose things. everything either sticks to something else or is hiding under something else. Anyway, I'm going to take that out of my MISTI, and then I'm going to add some white embossing powder to the front, and let's see how well that dusty powdery thing worked. Pretty well. Cool, you can see right through it. There's very little loose powder, and I'm just going to take my my heat gun to it and take it away, just so I try to minimize warping on my acetate. And then I'm going to attach some double-sided tape to the back of my shaker frame, and then I'm going to attach my acetate to the shaker frame. It could be a mom card, it could be a wow card, I just realized. And once that's on there, I'm going to pick out all the goodies for my shaker, which is my favorite part of making the shaker. It's just adding all the shakery fun bits. Oh, but first I gotta make the frame for it, don't I? Anyway, I got ahead of myself. I gotta build my little dam for all my shaker bits, and then I get to pick out all my shaker bits. And so I have this pack of iridescent little stars, which I thought would be perfect. Spoiler warning, it was not perfect. And then I'm going to add some sequins and some more sequins. I'm going to mix it up until I get the perfect concoction of sequined goodness. Now, as I mentioned, the iridescent stars were a good idea in theory until, yeah, they get everywhere. And so no big deal. You know, I'm just going to scoop them up and put them aside because I haven't built my shaker yet. And so once I've decided on my shaker bits, the amount of shaker bits on there, I'm going to attach my shaker frame to my card base, and then I'm going to seal it and then shake it around and test it until I realize that I did not seal it all the way shut. So much for trying to minimize the mess. Anyway, I'm going to really seal my shaker frame shut now and then test it out. And so no more stars fall out, thank goodness. And then once I get my mess cleaned up, I'm going to attach it to a note card. And so let's recap. We have this cool modern felt flowers card for the cool mom, not just a regular mom. And then we have this more traditional take on a Mother's Day card. It has some coloring, some heat embossing, and some sparkles. And then we have this interactive slider pull tab card featuring some cute little bunnies. And then we have this shaker card from hell. I mean, this cool shaker card. Perfect for mom. Anyway, I want to wish you guys a happy Mother's Day, and if you haven't subscribed, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on my next video. Thanks!